the half-empty glass of bourbon, his calloused fingers tracing the rim. The bar's dim lighting cast shadows across his weathered face. At 32, he built Hargrove Construction from nothing into a respected firm in Portland. His success story should have been complete with Vanessa, his wife of 7 years, by his side. Another one, Max? The bartender, Gus, slid over to him. Yeah, make it double. Max glanced at his watch. 9:47 p.m. Vanessa had claimed she was working late again. Third time this week. His phone buzzed. A text from Bryce, his foreman and only real friend. Saw Vanessa at the Emerald with some suit. Didn't look like a business meeting. Max's jaw tightened. The Emerald was a high-end restaurant downtown, not the type of place for casual business meetings. He'd suspected something was wrong for months. The late nights. The new perfume. The way she tilted her phone away when he entered the room. Cancel that drink, Max said, tossing cash on the counter. I need to go. The rain pounded against his truck's windshield as he drove to the Emerald. He parked across the street, engine idling. 20 minutes later, they emerged, Vanessa in a dress he'd never seen, laughing as she touched the arm of a tall, polished man with salt and pepper hair. Dr. Nathaniel Reeves, the prominent psychiatrist whose office Vanessa had hired Max's company to renovate last year. Max watched as Reeves opened his BMW's passenger door. Before Vanessa slid in, Reeves pulled her into a kiss that left no room for misinterpretation. Max's knuckles went white against the steering wheel, but he didn't move. Not yet. He needed proof beyond shadows in the rain. The next morning, Max maintained his routine. Vanessa had returned late, slipping into bed with whispered excuses about a work crisis. He said nothing, kissing her forehead before heading to his job site. You look like hell, Bryce said, handing him coffee. Need you to cover for me today. Tell the crew I'm meeting with the bank. Max drove to the electronics store, purchasing a small recording device and wireless cameras. That evening, he installed them strategically throughout their house. In his workshop, he meticulously fashioned a false bottom in Vanessa's dresser drawer while she showered. Over the next week, Max collected evidence. Phone calls when she thought he wasn't home. Text messages glimpsed when she stepped away from her phone. Conversations recorded in their living room when Reeves visited while Max was supposedly out of town. Their words cut deeper than any blade. We need to get rid of him, Reeves had said. You deserve better than some blue-collar guy who can't even discuss literature. Max isn't sophisticated, but he's good to me, Vanessa replied. Good enough to keep paying for this lifestyle while we enjoy ourselves. Their laughter had echoed through Max's workshop as he listened, silently crafting wooden coasters for a housewarming gift he'd promised their neighbors. That night, Vanessa suggested they take a weekend trip to Seattle. You've been working so hard. The Hunter Creek project is finished. Let's celebrate. Max agreed, smiling as he poured her another glass of wine. His eyes betrayed nothing as he scrolled through his phone, reading another message from Reeves to Vanessa. Train tickets booked. Once he's passed out, we'll leave him at the station. The comedy will be worth it. The Seattle-bound train hummed steadily on the tracks. Max nursed his third whiskey, watching the Oregon countryside blur past. Vanessa sat beside him, her hand occasionally squeezing his thigh. Across from them, Nathaniel Reeves pretended to read architectural papers, having joined them at the last minute due to what Vanessa called a happy coincidence. Drink up, Max, Vanessa encouraged, her green eyes sparkling. You've earned this break. 3 seats ahead, Max noticed a young woman glancing back at them periodically. Something about her seemed familiar, but the alcohol had begun to fog his thoughts. By the time they reached the Washington border, Max's speech had slurred. He rarely drank heavily, but the double-dosed sleeping pills Vanessa had slipped into his first drink explained his unusual state. Let's get some air at the next stop, Reeves suggested. Portland Union Station has a beautiful waiting area. Max tried to focus. That's going backward. We passed Portland hours ago. Vanessa laughed. Honey, we're not even an hour out. You dozed off. Something wasn't right, but Max couldn't fight the darkness creeping into his vision. The last thing he remembered was Vanessa and Reeves helping him onto a bench at what they claimed was just a brief stop. When Max awoke, the station was nearly empty. His wallet remained, but his phone was gone. The large clock above the ticketing office read 2:17 a.m. He stumbled to the information desk where a night attendant barely looked up from her magazine. Last train to Seattle left at 11:40. First morning train is at 6:15, she said flatly. My wife, Max muttered. Dark hair, green dress. And a man. Salt pepper hair. Couple fitting that description boarded the late Seattle train, she replied. Man said his drunk brother would be looking for them. Said to tell you good luck finding your way home, buddy. They seemed to think it was hilarious. Max steadied himself against the counter, clarity piercing through his drugged haze. He wasn't in Portland. The station signs read Centralia, Washington, a small city halfway between Portland and Seattle. He stumbled outside into the rain, laughing bitterly. The ultimate joke. Abandon the unsophisticated husband in an unfamiliar town with no phone. They'd be back in Portland by morning, in their bed, while he scrambled to find his way home, arriving disheveled and humiliated. The young woman from the train approached him under the station awning. They drugged you, she said matter-of-factly. Who are you? Diana Lowell. I work for Westlake Insurance. We've been investigating Dr. Reeves for insurance fraud. Your wife became a person of interest 3 months ago. Max stared at her. You were following us? I didn't expect them to dump you here. She handed him a business card. Call when you're sober. We should talk. Max pocketed the card without looking at it. He walked to the 24-hour diner across from the station, ordering coffee. By dawn, as he watched the first commuters arrive, a plan had crystallized in his mind. He borrowed the diner phone, calling his foreman. Bryce, I need a favor. Tell Vanessa I'm extending my trip. Business opportunity came up. She called looking for you already. Said you wandered off drunk. Perfect. Keep that story going. I'll explain later. Max withdrew cash from an ATM with his backup card, the one linked to his private account that Vanessa knew nothing about. He purchased a disposable phone, then checked into a motel under a false name. In his dingy room, he made 2 calls, one to his attorney requesting urgent document preparations, and another to Diana Lowell. I'm not interested in helping with your fraud case, he told her. But I need information, and I'm willing to pay for it. 3 days later, Maxwell Hargrove legally ceased to exist. Using contacts from his construction days, he obtained a new identity, Dominic Reed. He sold his half of Hargrove Construction to Bryce for a fraction of its worth, with payments directed to an offshore account. The motel room became his war room. Diana provided photos of Vanessa and Nathaniel's affair dating back 18 months, along with details of their conversations. They've been planning to push you out for months, Diana explained. Reeves has gambling debts. Your company's success made you a target. When Vanessa reported Max missing, Diana ensured the police investigation stalled, a favor she called in from a detective friend who owed her. Meanwhile, Max altered his appearance, growing a beard and darkening his blonde hair. Before disappearing completely, Max executed the final stroke. He emptied their joint accounts, transferring the money to untraceable Bitcoin. Their home, solely in his name, was sold to a shell company he'd established. By the time Vanessa realized what had happened, the house would belong to strangers, with no paper trail back to Maxwell Hargrove. You're being thorough, Diana noted, watching him organize his documents. They wanted to play a joke, Max replied coldly. Let's see how hard they laugh when they have nothing. Max left one clue, a message scrawled on their bedroom wall behind the headboard, where it wouldn't be discovered until the bed was moved. Who's laughing now? With a burner phone, Max called Bryce one last time. Is it done? He asked. She came home from Seattle hysterical, Bryce replied. Claimed you wandered off drunk. When police found your empty apartment and the transfer papers, she lost it. Reeves tried calming her down, but they're panicking. Your lawyers served the divorce papers this morning. Did you leave the envelope? Under the floorboards in their bedroom like you asked. The recording device is still running. Good. Destroy this number after we hang up. Before departing, Max considered Diana. She'd been professional, even sympathetic. Start over with me, he offered. She hesitated. I can't. I have family here. Max nodded, respecting her decision. If you ever change your mind, there's an envelope at this address. He handed her a paper with instructions to a safety deposit box containing $250,000 in bearer bonds. His thanks for her help. Hours later, Dominic Reed boarded a flight to Phoenix, Arizona. His contractor license transferred easily to the new state, and his seed money, modest compared to what he'd left behind, was enough to start again. Over the next 20 years, Dominic Reed Enterprises grew into one of the Southwest's premier construction firms. He specialized in luxury developments, earning a reputation for integrity, and innovation. Few knew the man behind the company. He avoided photos and public appearances, managing his empire through trusted lieutenants. The pain of betrayal hardened into something like a diamond inside him, unbreakable, cold, and capable of cutting through anything in his path. He never remarried, never trusted anyone with his true story. The only reminder of his past was a small newspaper clipping framed in his private office. Local psychiatrist files for bankruptcy following malpractice suit. Reeves had spiraled after Max's disappearance, taking increasingly desperate cases until one went tragically wrong. It was just the beginning of the long game Max had set in motion before disappearing. Dominic Reed surveyed downtown Phoenix from his penthouse office. The city sprawled beneath him like a circuit board glittering in the desert sun. At 52, he cut an imposing figure, his once blonde hair now silver and cropped short, his face weathered but distinguished, his physique maintained through relentless discipline. "Mr. Reed, your 2 o'clock is here." His assistant, Miranda, stood at the door. "Send him in." Dom straightened his custom suit, a small habit from his former life as Maxwell Hargrove. Lawrence Kingsley entered, extending his hand. The developer wanted Reed Enterprises to build his ambitious new project, a self-contained community in the foothills north of Phoenix. "Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Reed. They say you build fortresses, not just buildings." Dom smiled tightly. "I believe in creating things that last, Mr. Kingsley." The meeting progressed smoothly until Kingsley mentioned a potential partner. "Dr. Nathaniel Reeves recommended your firm specifically. His investment group is backing part of the project." Dom's face remained impassive, but his mind raced. It couldn't be coincidence. After decades of silence, Reeves appearing in his sphere could only mean one thing: they'd found him. "Dr. Reeves has good taste," Dom replied smoothly, "though I don't recall working with him before. He's relatively new to Arizona, relocated from Portland about 5 years ago after some troubles, making quite a comeback in medical investment circles." After Kingsley left, Dom summoned his head of security, Vincent Torres, a former intelligence operative who'd served him faithfully for 15 years. "I need information on Dr. Nathaniel Reeves. Everything: financial records, personal history, current connections. Most importantly, why he's suddenly interested in my company." "Problem, boss." Vincent raised an eyebrow. "Just due diligence." "And Vincent, this stays between us." That evening, Dom drove his Aston Martin to his isolated desert property 30 miles outside Phoenix. The modernist structure of concrete and glass sat atop a hill, almost invisible against the landscape. Inside the home's secure room, he opened a safe embedded in the floor, extracting a metal box he hadn't touched in 2 decades. Inside lay the remnants of Maxwell Hargrove: original birth certificate, photos of his parents, a small wooden box crafted by his father, and a USB drive containing evidence of Vanessa and Nathaniel's betrayal. He plugged the drive into an air-gapped computer, reviewing the old recordings and photos. Their voices sounded strange now, like characters from a half-forgotten film. His secure phone rang, Vincent calling. "Found something interesting," Vincent said. "Reeves married your ex-wife 16 years ago. They've been struggling financially. Reeves lost his medical license after a malpractice suit, tried reinventing himself as a medical investor. They live in Scottsdale now." Dom's grip tightened on the phone. "Any children?" "One daughter, Bianca Reeves, 22 years old." Dom did the math quickly. The timing suggested she could have been conceived shortly after his disappearance. "Get me DNA confirmation," Dom ordered. "Already working on it." "One more thing. They've been asking questions about Dominic Reed. Hired a private investigator last month." After hanging up, Dom stared at a photo of Vanessa on his screen. Her betrayal had defined his life's second act, fueling his rise from nothing. Now she was back, likely desperate, and seeking something from him. The thought brought a cold smile to his face. His security system alerted him to an approaching vehicle. The cameras showed a woman in her 50s, elegant despite obvious signs of aging, standing at his gate. Vanessa. After all these years, she'd found him. Dom activated the intercom. "This is private property." "Maxwell." Her voice cracked. "It's me. Please, we need to talk." Dom's finger hovered over the button that would open the gate. 20 years of carefully orchestrated anonymity hung in the balance. With deliberate slowness, he pressed a different button. The security lights shut off, plunging the entrance into darkness. He watched as she stood there for nearly an hour before finally returning to her car. As her taillights disappeared down the desert road, Dom made a decision. It was time to finish what began at that train station. He would let them find him on his terms. The next morning, Dom received Vincent's report. DNA tests confirmed Bianca Reeves was not his biological daughter, sparing him one complication. Financial records showed Nathaniel and Vanessa were underwater. Multiple mortgages, credit card debt, and failed investment schemes had left them desperate. They've leveraged everything for Kingsley's development, Vincent explained. If it fails, they're ruined. Dom nodded, a plan forming. Have our team analyze Kingsley's proposal. Every detail, every weakness. Planning to tank the deal? No. I'm going to save it. Dom's smile didn't reach his eyes. After I own it completely. For the next week, Dom maintained his routine while monitoring Vanessa's movements. She returned to his gate twice more. Each time, he watched in silence. Meanwhile, he arranged a meeting with Lawrence Kingsley at the construction site. Standing together overlooking the barren desert, Dom pointed out critical flaws in the development plan. Your water allocation is insufficient. The geological survey missed unstable ground beneath the eastern sector, and your primary investor group is leveraged beyond sustainability. Kingsley paled. How do you know about my investors? I make it my business to know everything about my projects, including Dr. Reeves' financial situation. Dom handed him a folder. His investment group is a paper tiger. They'll collapse before groundbreaking. This would destroy me, Kingsley whispered. Not necessarily. I'm prepared to buy out their stake at 40 cents on the dollar and provide the additional capital to address the water and foundation issues. Why would you do this? Dom clapped him on the shoulder. Because I want to build something remarkable here. Something that will last generations. The takeover was swift and brutally efficient. By week's end, Dom controlled 67% of the development. Kingsley retained operational control, but financial power had shifted decisively. That evening, a text arrived from an unknown number. We know who you are, Maxwell. Meeting unavoidable now. The Phoenician, 8 p.m. Dom forwarded the message to Vincent, who responded immediately. Location secure. Reeves made reservation under his name. Wife will accompany. No visible security. At 8:15, Dom entered the restaurant's private dining room. Vincent had arranged for security personnel posing as waitstaff. Nathaniel and Vanessa rose as he approached, their faces showing 20 years of comfortable living followed by recent stress. Maxwell, Vanessa whispered, reaching for his hand. Dom sidestepped her touch, sitting at the table's head. I go by Dominic now. Shall we order? The waiter poured wine. Dom noted Nathaniel's trembling hands. You've done well for yourself, Nathaniel attempted. Quite the empire. Yes, Dom replied simply. Unlike your series of failures. Vanessa's face hardened. We had difficulties after you left. After you abandoned me at a train station, Dom corrected. Quite the joke. It was stupid, Nathaniel admitted. We were young, irresponsible. And now you're old and desperate. Dom sipped his water. Which brings us to why you sought me out after all these years. Vanessa leaned forward. We've changed, Max. What happened was unforgivable, but... Let's dispense with pretense, Dom interrupted. You need money. Your stake in Kingsley's development was your last hope. Now I control it. Nathaniel's face reddened. You deliberately targeted us. No. You deliberately entered my world. I simply responded. Dom placed 3 documents on the table. Your options. First, a buyout of your remaining interest at market value, approximately $300,000. Second, consulting positions with the project, salaried but no ownership. Third, I withdraw completely, the project collapses, and your creditors take everything. You're enjoying this, Vanessa accused. Immensely. Dom stood. You have until tomorrow to decide. As he turned to leave, Nathaniel called out. You owe us more than this, Maxwell. After what you did to us. Dom paused. What I did? You destroyed our lives. Emptied the accounts, sold the house from under us. Vanessa was investigated for your disappearance. We lost everything. Almost everything, Dom corrected. You had each other. Wasn't that the point of your little train station joke? To have me out of the way? He left them sitting in stunned silence, driving straight to his office. Vincent awaited him. They chose option 4, Vincent reported, sliding a tablet across the desk. The screen showed police reports filed by Nathaniel and Vanessa before their meeting, alleging threats and harassment from Dominic Reed, whom they claimed was actually Maxwell Hargrove, a man with a vendetta against them. Dom laughed. They still underestimate me. Dom woke the next morning to his phone buzzing incessantly. The screen showed 49 missed calls, 7 from Vanessa, 12 from Nathaniel, and the remainder from unknown numbers. News alerts crowded his notifications. Vincent called as he scrolled through messages. It started, his security chief said. They've gone public with their story. Local news is running with it. Phoenix billionaire actually missing husband with revenge plot. They're painting themselves as victims. Dom dressed calmly, selecting his most imposing suit. Activate contingency protocol Lazarus. Already in motion. Our crisis team is prepared with the evidence packages. When Dom arrived at his office, reporters crowded the lobby. His legal team flanked him as he strode through the chaos without acknowledging questions. In his conference room, his executives awaited. Dom addressed them directly. 20 years ago, I was Maxwell Hargrove. I was drugged and abandoned by my then-wife and her lover as a joke. Rather than return to that life, I chose to start over. Everything I've built is legitimate. This company will weather this storm. The room remained silent until his CFO spoke. What do you need from us? Business as usual. This is personal, not corporate. As the meeting disbanded, Dom's phone rang. Lawrence Kingsley. I'm being contacted by reporters, Kingsley said. They're saying you built your empire on stolen money. Do you believe them? A pause. No, but perception matters in our business. Give me 48 hours, Dom promised. Things will become clearer. After hanging up, Dom reviewed Vincent's latest report. Nathaniel and Vanessa had escalated beyond media. They'd filed legal claims against Reed Enterprises, alleging it was built with assets stolen from Maxwell Hargrove's estate. They're desperate, Vincent observed. The Kingsley project was their last chance. No, Dom corrected. I'm their last chance. That's why they're pushing so hard. They think they can force a settlement. Dom spent the afternoon in video conferences with his attorneys. By evening, the story had gone national. The billionaire developer who reinvented himself after being abandoned by his cheating wife. Public opinion seemed split. Some viewed him as the victim of a cruel joke who'd risen above his past, while others questioned the legality of his actions following his disappearance. As darkness fell, Dom's secure line rang, a number he hadn't seen in 20 years. Hello, Max. Diana Lowell's voice hadn't changed much. Diana, I wondered if you'd surface during this circus. I saw the news. Thought you might need that package I've been holding. Dom smiled. Diana had been his insurance policy. The evidence she'd gathered as an insurance investigator had been preserved and updated over the years. Her testimony could destroy Nathaniel and Vanessa's claims of innocence. I think it's time, he agreed. Can you be in Phoenix tomorrow? I've been in Phoenix for 3 years, she replied, running the regional office of Westlake Insurance. I've kept tabs on you. The revelation startled him. Why didn't you contact me? You seem to be doing fine on your own. But this changes things. As night deepened, the calls continued to accumulate on Dom's phone. 49 missed calls became 60, then 75. He ignored them all, focusing instead on preparing for his counterattack. In his desert home, Dom opened a safe containing one final piece of evidence he'd never revealed. The original recording devices from his former home, which had captured Vanessa and Nathaniel discussing their plan to drug and abandon him, along with their intentions for his money. They thought the joke was leaving me behind, Dom murmured to the empty room. But the real joke is what's coming next. Dawn broke over Phoenix with Dom already awake, reviewing documents in his home office. The media frenzy had intensified overnight, with morning shows featuring interviews with friends of Maxwell Hargrove who claimed he'd been unstable before his disappearance. They're crafting a narrative, Vincent observed, bringing coffee. Making you sound mentally ill before the train station incident. Of course they are. Dom nodded toward the television. Look at the friend they're interviewing. The screen showed a heavy-set man identified as Colin Denvers, former colleague. Vincent frowned. Problem. Colin Denvers died 12 years ago. That's an actor. Dom's phone lit up with a text from Diana. Ready when you are. Dom's response was immediate. Excalibur Protocol. Noon. By mid-morning, Dom had convened his crisis team at Reed Tower. Legal representatives, PR specialists, and security personnel filled the conference room. At noon today, We released the full evidence package to select media outlets, Dom instructed. Simultaneously, our legal team files countercharges against Vanessa and Nathaniel Reeves for defamation, fraud, and conspiracy. His general counsel raised a hand. The statute of limitations doesn't apply, Dom interrupted, because they've reopened the matter publicly and made new fraudulent claims. Diana Lowell's testimony confirms the original drugging incident, and we have evidence they've fabricated witnesses for their current media campaign. As the meeting adjourned, Dom's private elevator admitted Diana Lowell. 20 years had treated her well. Her blonde hair now had elegant streaks of gray, but her posture remained ramrod straight, her eyes sharp. "You've become quite the tycoon," she said, embracing him briefly. "And you never did cash those bearer bonds." She smiled. "I considered them a long-term investment." Together, they reviewed the evidence compilation, a devastating collection of documents, recordings, and testimonials that would not only clear Dom's name, but expose Nathaniel and Vanessa's two-decade history of deception. "There's a risk in doing this," Diana cautioned. "Once this becomes public, Dominic Reed and Maxwell Hargrove will forever be connected." "I'm not hiding anymore," Dom replied. "That part of their power over me ends today." At 11:45, Dom's phone rang. Vanessa again. This time, he answered. "Finally," she breathed. "Max, please, we need to talk. Things are spinning out of control. That was your choice. You went public because you left us no options. This development was our chance to rebuild." Dom's voice hardened. "Like I had to rebuild after you left me drugged at a train station? It was a stupid prank. We came back for you the next day, but you were gone." "Lies," Dom replied calmly. "Diana Lowell has provided sworn testimony that you returned to Portland that night, celebrating your freedom from the unsophisticated husband." Silence stretched between them before Vanessa's tone changed. "What do you want, Max? Money? We'll drop the claims if you reinstate our stake in the development. Turn on Channel 12 in 15 minutes. You'll have my answer then." At precisely noon, Dom stood before cameras at a hastily arranged press conference. His legal team distributed evidence packets to journalists as he approached the microphone. 20 years ago, I was Maxwell Hargrove," he began. "A successful contractor whose wife and her lover drugged him and abandoned him at a train station as a joke. Rather than return to betrayal, I chose to rebuild my life under a new name, legally, transparently, using only seed money from accounts that were solely in my name." He gestured to Diana, who joined him at the podium. "This is Diana Lowell, an insurance investigator who witnessed the aftermath of their prank and has maintained records of their actions since." For the next 30 minutes, Dom dismantled Vanessa and Nathaniel's claims, presenting evidence of their original plot, their subsequent financial misdeeds, and their recent fabrication of witnesses. "I filed no charges against them until now," Dom concluded. "I simply wish to live my life in peace. Their decision to pursue me through false claims has forced this response." As he finished speaking, Vincent approached with a tablet. The screen showed Nathaniel and Vanessa watching the broadcast from their Scottsdale home, their faces ashen. "Phase 2. Vincent asked quietly. Dom nodded. "Proceed." Across town, federal agents arrived at the Reeves residence with search warrants related to wire fraud and tax evasion, charges stemming from their fabricated investment group and years of financial misrepresentations that Dom's investigators had uncovered. As Dom departed the press conference, Lawrence Kingsley called again. "I've seen everything," Kingsley said. "I'm still in if you are." "The development proceeds as planned," Dom confirmed, without the Reeves involvement. By evening, the media narrative had shifted dramatically. What began as the story of a vengeful ex-husband had transformed into a tale of resilience against betrayal. Financial analysts praised Dom's transparency while questioning how the Reeves had maintained their lifestyle despite years of documented losses. In his desert home, Dom watched the coverage with Diana. "Feel vindicated?" she asked. "Vindication implies I needed external validation. This was simply correction." Diana studied him. "You've been planning this for 20 years, haven't you? Not just protecting yourself, but preparing for when they eventually found you." Dom smiled. "The best revenge is built slowly, brick by brick." The days following Dom's press conference brought a cascade of revelations. Federal investigators expanded their probe into Nathaniel and Vanessa's finances, uncovering connections to multiple fraudulent investment schemes. Former patients came forward with allegations that Reeves had mishandled their cases, stories that had been suppressed through settlements containing non-disclosure agreements. Dom observed the fallout with detached precision, directing Vincent to maintain surveillance but take no further action. The system he'd set in motion would complete what he'd started. "They've requested a meeting," Vincent reported 3 days later. "Through their attorney." "Denied," Dom replied without hesitation. "All communication through legal channels only." On the 4th day, Bianca Reeves, Nathaniel and Vanessa's daughter, appeared at Reed Tower, demanding to see him. Security alerted Dom immediately. "What's your assessment?" Dom asked Vincent after viewing the security footage. "She's angry but composed. 22 years old, graduate student in psychology at ASU. No criminal record." Dom considered for a moment. "Send her up." Bianca Reeves had Vanessa's green eyes, but none of her softness. She sat across from Dom, her posture rigid with controlled fury. "You've destroyed my parents," she began without preamble. "Your parents destroyed themselves," Dom corrected. "I merely exposed the truth." "The truth?" she scoffed. "You abandoned your wife, stole your joint assets, and disappeared. Then you spent 20 years building an empire while planning revenge." Dom leaned forward. "Is that the story they told you? That I abandoned Vanessa? I've seen the police reports from when you disappeared. Reports your mother filed after they left me drugged at a train station." Dom activated his display, showing her the evidence Diana had compiled. "This is what actually happened. Your mother and father, who was her lover while we were married, thought it would be amusing to drug me and leave me in an unfamiliar city without my phone. I simply chose not to return to people capable of such betrayal." Bianca's face remained impassive as she reviewed the documents, but Dom noted the slight tremor in her hands. "Even if this is true," she said finally, "your response is disproportionate. They played a cruel prank. You've orchestrated their complete destruction." "No," Dom shook his head. "I never contacted them after I left. I built a new life, leaving them to theirs. They chose to enter my world, to attempt blackmail through media pressure. Everything that's happening now is the consequence of their choices, 20 years ago and last week." Bianca stood, gathering her composure. "They're facing criminal charges. They could go to prison. For crimes they actually committed," Dom noted. "Not ones I fabricated. Is there nothing I can say that would make you stop this?" Dom studied her, innocent of her parents' sins, yet shaped by their deceptions. "I won't pursue them further. But I won't intervene in legitimate investigations either." After she left, Diana called. "I saw Vanessa and Nathaniel's daughter enter your building. Everything okay?" "She wanted me to call off the dogs." "And?" Dom sighed. "I told her I wouldn't pursue additional charges." "That's surprisingly restrained." "She's not responsible for their actions," Dom replied. "Unlike them, I don't punish the innocent." The following morning, Lawrence Kingsley arrived with updated development plans. The project, now named Phoenix Ascendant, would proceed with Dom as majority stakeholder. "We've resolved the water rights issues," Kingsley explained, spreading blueprints across the conference table. "And the foundation reinforcement adds only 12% to construction costs." Dom approved the revisions, signing the final contracts. As Kingsley departed, he asked, "How does it feel?" Winning so completely, Dom considered the question. "It feels appropriate." Later that day, as Dom reviewed quarterly projections, Vincent entered with news. Nathaniel Reeves had suffered a heart attack and was in intensive care. Vanessa had been arrested on related fraud charges after investigators discovered evidence she'd been orchestrating their financial schemes. "Do you want to respond?" Vincent asked. Dom shook his head. "No. Their chapter in my life is closed." That evening, Dom drove to his desert home, watching the sunset paint the landscape in amber and crimson. His phone rang. "Diana. Thought you might want company tonight," she said when he answered. "I'm fine." "Didn't ask if you were fine. Asked if you wanted company." Dom smiled despite himself. "The gate code is 4721. They sat on his terrace as darkness claimed the desert, sharing a bottle of whiskey. "What will you do now?" Diana asked. "Your secret's out. Maxwell Hargrove and Dominic Reed are forever connected." "Continue building," Dom replied. "That's what I do." Diana studied him in the fading light. "You never really moved on, did you? Everything you've built was shaped by what happened at that train station." Dom considered her words. "Perhaps, but I built something lasting from that foundation of betrayal. There's a certain symmetry to it. Is it enough? She asked quietly. Dom didn't answer immediately, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains. It will have to be. 1 month after his public revelation, Dom stood at the Phoenix Ascendant groundbreaking ceremony. Photographers captured his silver-haired figure against the desert backdrop as he pressed the ceremonial shovel into the earth. This development represents more than luxury homes and commercial space, he told the assembled journalists and dignitaries. It's about creating something that outlasts us, a community built on solid foundations. The symbolism wasn't lost on those familiar with his story. Lawrence Kingsley nodded appreciatively at the double meaning. As construction began, Dom received word that Nathaniel Reeves had survived his heart attack but faced multiple federal charges. Vanessa had accepted a plea deal, agreeing to testify against associates in their various financial schemes. They'd lost everything, their homes seized, assets frozen, reputations destroyed. Vincent provided regular updates on their declining situation, but Dom found himself increasingly disinterested. The reckoning he'd anticipated for 20 years had arrived, yet it brought neither joy nor peace, merely closure. Diana had become a more frequent presence in his life, their shared history creating a unique understanding between them. One evening, as they reviewed charitable foundation proposals in his office, she broached the subject directly. Have you visited them? Dom looked up from his papers. No. Why would I? Because until you do, they still have power over you. He considered her words carefully. Perhaps you're right. The next day, Dom directed his driver to the federal detention center where Vanessa awaited sentencing. Vincent had arranged the meeting, ensuring privacy. Vanessa appeared haggard, her once vibrant beauty dulled by stress and defeat. She sat across from Dom, separated by a reinforced glass partition. I didn't expect to see you, she said, her voice steady despite everything. I needed to understand something, Dom replied. All these years later, did you ever regret what you did at that train station? Vanessa studied him before answering. Yes, not immediately. We thought you'd find your way home, humiliated but unharmed. When you disappeared instead, I felt relief at first, then guilt. But Nathaniel convinced me you'd orchestrated it to punish us. And you believed that? I needed to. Her eyes met his directly. It was easier than admitting we'd destroyed something good for a cruel joke. Easier than acknowledging I'd betrayed a good man who loved me. Dom absorbed her words silently. You won, Max, she continued. You took everything. No. Dom shook his head. You and Nathaniel took everything from yourselves. 20 years ago, and again now. I simply refused to be your victim. He stood to leave, but paused when she spoke again. Was it worth it? Building your entire life around revenge. Dom considered the question. I didn't build my life around revenge. I built it around never being vulnerable to people like you again. The distinction matters. From the detention center, Dom drove to the Phoenix Ascendant construction site. Workers had begun laying foundations for the first buildings. Lawrence Kingsley greeted him, walking him through the progress. We're ahead of schedule, Kingsley noted proudly. The modified design actually improved efficiency. Dom nodded, watching excavators carve into the desert floor. I want to make a change to the Central Park area. Add a water feature, something significant. That'll increase costs. It's important, Dom insisted. Something that rises from stone, transforms, and emerges stronger. Kingsley studied the blueprint Dom sketched. A phoenix in water and stone. Symbolic. Sometimes symbolism matters. That evening, Vincent delivered his final report on the Reeves situation. Nathaniel had been denied bail and faced 15 to 20 years if convicted on all charges. Vanessa's plea deal would likely result in 3 to 5 years. Their remaining assets had been liquidated to cover legal fees. What do you want done with the surveillance? Vincent asked. Continue monitoring or terminate? Dom considered the question. 20 years of vigilance weighed against the freedom of letting go. Terminate, he decided. It's finished. Later, as Dom watched the sunset from his terrace, Diana joined him, 2 glasses of whiskey in hand. I visited Vanessa today, he said, accepting the drink. And nothing. They're just people. Flawed, selfish people who made terrible choices. He turned to face her. You were right. I needed to see that for myself. Diana settled beside him, her shoulder brushing his. What happens now, Dominic Reed? Now. Dom smiled slightly. Now I build something new. 6 months later, Phoenix Ascendant's first phase neared completion. At its center stood the promised water feature, a massive sculpture of a phoenix rising from stylized flames, water cascading around its wings. The base contained a simple inscription, "From ashes, rebirth." Dom walked the grounds with Diana, reviewing final details before the grand opening. "It's remarkable," she said, studying the sculpture. "This whole development, it's something to be proud of." "Yes," Dom agreed. "Something that will outlast the pain that inspired it." As they stood there, Dom's phone chimed with a news alert. Nathaniel Reeves had been sentenced to 18 years for fraud and conspiracy. Vanessa had received 4 years with possibility of parole after 2. Dom read the notification, then silenced his phone and returned it to his pocket without comment. "Not interested?" Diana asked. "Their story isn't mine anymore," Dom replied, taking her hand. "I have other foundations to build now." As evening settled over Phoenix Ascendant, lights illuminated the rising phoenix, water gleaming against stone. Dominic Reed, once Maxwell Hargrove, stood beside the woman who'd helped him rise from his own ashes, finally free of the past that had defined him for 20 years. The joke played at a distant train station had long since faded. In its place stood a legacy of strength, resilience, and ultimately, release, a testament not to revenge, but to the power of transformation. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.